And the next presenter is Kelly Kubik, and Kelly is the Executive Director of the Okanagan Metis Child Family Services.
Tashikiwa, Tase, bonjour. Everybody, my name is Kelly Kubik. As he just said, I'm the Executive Director of Okanagan Metis Family Services. Say that 12 times. I'm of the Metis Nation. I thought I'd give you a little background as to who I am. It's always neat. My dad, when he was alive, was Czechoslovakian, and he got booted out when he was 16 and had a pickup truck he was given and a pig, and decided to cruise up north and get a job with the Hudson Bay. And so he did. And when he did, he ended up in a place called Fort Smith, and that's where he met my mom. Needless to say, they got busy, and here I came. So we ended up heading up to the Northwest Territories, and along the way, we stopped in a place called Fort Franklin, now Delaney, where they had my sister. And we proceeded up to Inuvik, where I grew up for 5 years in a very beautiful environment, meeting a lot of interesting people who were Inuit and other sorts. We ended up in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, and eventually my dad got headhunted for the Northwest Territorial Government, and then we ended up getting shipped out to Ottawa. Talk about culture shock. Okay. Anyways, we ended up back in the north, and unfortunately I lost my parents at an early age due to medical histories and stuff like that. But we were fortunate enough when my parents chose to retire before they had their incidents to end up in the Okanagan. And we started off in Penticton, and so I got to finish my grade 11, grade 12 there. And the first thing I thought about was, because I was still blonde-haired, it's getting gray and brown now, but I got my blue eyes, as I'm looking around in Penticton, I'm going, where are the Aboriginal people? And when I say Aboriginal, I mean First Nations, Metis, and Inuit, according to the Constitution. And then all of a sudden I'm hearing rumors that, don't talk to those Indians, and I'm at, Penn High, and they're bad, we don't like them. And I go, okay, well, I'm Métis, I better shut up, eh? And I felt really bad, and we're talking about cultural safety today. And I want to recognize first the speakers this morning, and again, Jenny and Diane and Evan. I really enjoyed your presentations. And I also want to acknowledge Westbank First Nation and the traditional land we're on. Because when we talk about culture safety, I think about cultural self-esteem, cultural identity, these types of things. So coming from the Northwest Territories, where I grew up amongst a lot of Aboriginal people, like First Nations people, Inuit people, Métis people. I remember when my mom had me in the living room, and my mom would, Jake, hey, this is great, I love this, it's part of my culture. Or going out with my grandma and grandpa and looking at the buffalo and Fort Smith and fishing. And so there is a reason to be connected to your land, but all of a sudden I'm in British Columbia. Okay, I'm not on my homeland anymore, and it wasn't my fault. There were some incidents that brought me out here. And this has occurred with a lot of Métis people. And the government came in, and anybody know about the Battle of Batoche? Okay, there's only a couple of hundred of us, but we sure did some damage to Canada. They had Gatling guns, so needless to say, we lost. But so we got driven out of our lands and stuff like that, and we were nomadic. When I look back, and we were very prosperous. We have a very vibrant history. We were the reason for a lot of economic development in the West. Father of Confederation, Louis Riel. Oh, hang on, I was in school. That guy's nuts. He's crazy. That's what I learned. I'm going, okay, well, all right, I better not learn about this guy. It wasn't until I was an adult and I started to realize who Louis Riel was and what he did for our nation, and he is a hero. So again, very vibrant history. But needless to say, we got pushed into BC here, and all of a sudden, here we are in a land, and we don't have land, or at least people are telling us this. And okay, well, you're Métis, you're bad, you're half-breed, half-blood, you don't belong here, you're not Indian enough, or you're too white, you don't belong here. I'm going, well, okay, I'm Métis. I didn't do anything to you guys. Can't I just be Métis? That's how I grew up, Métis. So anyways, I was young, and so boom, I went back to the north, and I got lucky enough to work geriatric palliative care, and what a learning experience, beautiful learning experience in the north. Met a lot of Aboriginal people, and near their end of life, and I got to hear a lot of stories. And I'll never forget this one lady, bouncing around a bit, but I'll come back. She was, they brought her in, and she's flailing around, and she's mad, and the nurses are going, oh, she's crazy, look out. And she's scratching and stuff, and I'm looking back. And so they just put me on this ward, the geriatrics ward. I said, Kelly, you're going to be the recreational therapist. Here's a corner, build it. And so anyways, she became one of my clients, and I'm going, looking at her going, okay, well, she's an elder grandma. I bet you she smokes. Maybe that's what it's all about. So I go to the nurses, do you give her smoke breaks? And they go, no. So they ended up giving her a smoke break. And we started doing every one in the morning, one at lunch, one in the afternoon, one before she goes to bed. Well, she was the calmest grandma you ever knew after that. She was just like, yeah. But she couldn't speak English. She was in her own language. And none of us, unfortunately, had an interpreter that could interpret. So again, it was stepping back and looking at, okay, well, we can't understand her, but we can look at the body and we can try something else. So it's about cultural safety, right? Okay, it goes two ways. That's what I'm saying. Okay, nurses weren't feeling safe. She wasn't feeling safe. But in the end, everybody was safe, right? And she turned out really cool. So anyways, while I was back in the north, I got to recharge and, learn more about my roots. And I shared some of my stories of being in BC with my aunts and my cousins and stuff like that. And they're going, okay, well, you should never be ashamed of who you are. And so after 5 years in the north, I got tired of the winters. I've already spent, 16 up there, and 40 below tends to get a little bit on you after a while. So, and then once you've been in the Okanagan, you get kind of spoiled. So I came back. And I always said, I'm going to do something for my people. Or my nation, because we shouldn't feel ashamed of ourselves. It is about cultural identity. It is about cultural esteem. And I was fortunate enough then that the Métis were just happening to look for somebody, and okay, they need a coordinator, so I jumped on board. And long story short, we blew up an agency and we created a new one called Okanagan Families because there was nepotism and all kinds of stuff that we had to deal with. But out of that, we created an environment where not only could Métis people come, but First Nations people could come, Inuit people could come, people of the general community could come to a safe environment. Because I have the philosophy that I never want that to happen to anybody that comes into our organization. I never want them to feel bad about themselves. I don't care if you're German, Jewish, Iranian, whatever. I love traveling the world. I love embracing new cultures. But Canada, we have beautiful culture here. We have a lot of First Nation cultures. We have a lot of Inuit cultures. And we have Métis culture. And why should it be any different for me as a Métis person not to be given that opportunity, that health, that right to learn about my history, about my past, about my language, about who I am as a person, about my people, where we came from. And I think when we look at our kids, K-12 systems, they need to be given that opportunity. It's not just about learning First Nations and other things, because assimilation is assimilation. We need to be given that opportunity also. And we do have a high number of Métis people in British Columbia. For example, there's 300,000 Métis in Canada. There's 44,000 of us in British Columbia. In the Okanagan, we have 5,000 to 8,000. These are all according to 2001 stats. I guarantee those will be bigger numbers. Because, when I first started with Okanagan Families, I think maybe 480 people felt good about themselves and declared themselves Métis citizens. Today, just in Kelowna, we have 2,800 Métis identified. That's happened in 4 years. So, the other thing I want to talk about is the importance of data and research. Well, many Aboriginal groups have said we've been researched to death. Not the Métis. We don't have any information on our mortality rates, our birth rates, our longevity rates, and that's important stuff. We need to know that. How long we're going to be living. These are all part of cultural health safety. Like, how do we make a change in life and people's lives if we don't know about this stuff? So we need to be inclusive into that. Same thing with like funding and things like that. That's all part of cultural safety, because we don't have access to funding environments like, well, say for example, the First Nations Inuit get funding, but we get left out. Well, that's not fair. So what are you saying? We're still invisible and we still don't count? It's starting to change, but again, I'm not here to preach. I'm just stating the obvious. These are things that we deal with. Did you know in terms of socioeconomic status, 30.7 Métis people are on the marginal line of poverty versus the rest of Canada, which is 16.4%. We have the highest number of Aboriginal people or Métis people in the labor force. That says to me is we're used for cheap labor. And Carrie Barassa is actually came up with those figures, and she had to really do some deep research on that. We look at how Métis Nation, our communities have been deconstructed is an interesting word that Judith Bartlett has used. And it's how we continue to either be taken apart or or we're not allowed to learn about ourselves, which I find really interesting because since the Battle of Batoche and everything, Métis people have just gotten more and more resilient. And that's what happens. We take it underground, and we did. We took our cultural underground. And good old Louis, he said, in 100 years, my people will awaken, and it will be the artists that lead the way. And it's true, because it doesn't matter if you're an artist in painting or soapstone carving, or I find I'm the artist of the pen, and our researchers are the artists of collecting data. So you can have an art and the way you perceive art in many different ways. The other thing I want to talk about is we also got impacted by residential schools and the 60 scoop and colonization. And it created a lot of generational and intergenerational impacts. And again, talk about cultural safety. A lot of Métis people don't want to go to the doctors, or they're paranoid because they were involved in those processes also. And believe it or not, they might have signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. We have a clinical program or service that we have at the agency, and we find residential school survivors, there's a high incidence of post-traumatic stress disorder. You don't wonder why. I guess the other thing is a right to equality of health, and that's something that Métis people have a right to. I'm not asking for anything different. I'm just asking that when children from the K-12 system and they grow into be young adults, they be given the same opportunity to be healthy. And right now we don't see that, because right now what I'm seeing is a high number of Métis children becoming into the care of the director of Métis children, or Ministry of Children and Families, which tells me there's a high number of families out there with a lot of issues of health or addictions or mental. If we look at, like a lot of our people that are on the streets, can't afford cost of living in the Okanagan. Look at the housing rates, how they've gone up. And the other thing is we like to focus on is integrated, holistic, wraparound approach service, which I think is important. I'm not going to take my culture to a service. I've already tried that. I've seen it. It doesn't work. I see Aboriginal teams being formed out there where they call themselves an Aboriginal team, but there are no Aboriginal people on those teams. You got to bring that service to the culture. And so maybe you look at seconding workers into the environment and things like that. That's part of cultural safety, because I can teach you, or at least not just me, but our community can teach you through our elders, our youth, through our families, who we are as people. And there are different Aboriginal cultures out there. First Nations have different protocols. Métis, we have different culture, just the way it is. And other structures need to start to learn that they have to work with that stuff. And the other thing is be inclusive and not exclusive. It's one thing we like to do at our agency. We like to work with everybody. Like, for example, University of British Columbia, Okanagan, I had the fortune of having a couple students come to us last year, and they weren't Aboriginal. They were going, well, blonde hair, blue eyes. And I'm going, okay, well, you look my wife, but hey, I think she's Aboriginal, so don't worry. But no, come on in and, learn about us, because that's how you break down biased and racist barriers within your communities. And at the same time, why not? The more people that know about the issues that are affecting Aboriginal communities, I think the more we're going to be able to deal with it, get it dealt with, and then move on. And so, we need to look at the future. We need to be including people. We don't have enough Aboriginal people right now to do the jobs that need to be done. When you look at clinical therapeutic service, things like that, I am so happy and so impressed with our staff, because I can truly say I work in a multicultural environment. Yes, it's a Métis organization, but we have people in there that aren't Métis, but they love and respect our culture, and we include them as a community. It's through true partnership with community, like through universities or Interior Health or Ministry of Children and Families or Justice. That's how we start to break the barriers down. And as Aboriginal people, First Nation people, Métis people, Inuit people, we need to start to work together. And it's only when we get over our own issues that we can truly say in a room that we want to truly partner with you. We're gonna do something. But until we come to the table and we have our own little indifferences, we can't get beyond our own little power struggle or whatever it is, because somebody's starting to give us a little bit of power. Here's $30,000. We ain't gonna get anywhere. You need to have true collaboration, true partnership to move forward. And I think I'll end with that. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity today to speak.